Welcome to Inside Builder channel. Solopreneur's secret weapon. Building your company with Agentic IDE. Part 3. 10 steps to build your own website. We have been diving into this multi-series videos on how to build your own website using Cursor and Agentic IDE. In the last video, we have been discussing on the first 4 steps, that is 0 to 3, and we have been looking at how the website was looking, and we have been discussing why we are building the website by ourselves. In this video, we are going to dive a little bit more deep and understand how to learn not just HTMX, any concept on the project with Cursor IDE. If you have been following up with other videos that you have already seen, then you must have already decided, okay, let me try and build the website by myself. Let me see how well I can do it with the help of Agentic IDE, and let me explore whether Agentic IDE is really that powerful. So if you have decided that, there are a couple of things that you will have to understand before you dive in. This video is going to make it easy for you to start working with the Agentic IDEs. So what we are going to do is, we are going to understand these 5 things right now. Before we actually start learning anything with Cursor IDEs or any of these Agentic IDEs, we need to understand their internals. So we will dive into that. Then we will see how to learn with Cursor. We will also introduce Git Pushing, Git repository, and pushing code to the repository. We will introduce Markdown and recording notes. And we will finally start updating the code base and reviewing the output on our website. This was the website that we developed earlier, and we have to update it to get the landing page. We have to update it to get a sidebar and do a lot more things in this website. So right now it is a very simple looking task manager that you are seeing in front of you. Let's go back. First of all, let us start by understanding the Cursor internals. When you start using Cursor, you can enable this frame, the chat frame and the composer frame, and you can start creating projects using these 2 frames. The difference between the composer and the chat is that the composer can create the file by itself. The files that you see on this side of the Cursor IDE on the left side, it will be created automatically. But when you're using the chat interface, you will manually create it. I personally feel and also promote that you need to create the files one by one when you are beginning to learn Cursor or beginning to learn programming with Cursor IDE. There is a reason for this. Once you start building complex projects, you will understand how important this is. That is one of the parts that we are talking about. But in order to start even learning how to use these IDEs, you need to first of all know how the IDEs are built internally and how to connect with different models and how to look at the sign-in page and see what is there. So if you go to settings in your Cursor dashboard inside the website, so if you go to cursor.com, once you sign in, only after you sign in, you will be able to actually get this prompts working. If you are not signed in, then it will not work. Right, so just give me a second. In your account in the cursor.com settings, you will see that you have the usage limit that is shown to you. You will be given a quota, a free quota for 250 fast requests for Claude model, and GPT-4o mini or Cursor small, you will be given no limits at all. So what does this mean? If you go back to Cursor, you can select GPT-4o mini and the Claude, okay, the Cursor small model is not getting listed here. Both of these models, you can actually select it and you can use it without any limit. But 3.5 Sonnet, you will have to use it only for about 250 fast updates. So you have to be aware of this. Next, if you click on this gear icon near the composer, if you click on this gear icon, it will open the settings, the cursor settings that you can see here. That will have 4 parts. So the general part will talk to you about the rules that you can set. You can import your VS Code settings. You can work on the cursor rules. This cursor rules file is there is a separate website itself for cursor rule files. There are varieties of rules that people are coming up with, and they are updating it. I will share that website link in this description below. Try to take a look at it. You will be astonished how well this has been documented and how you can use it. But before you go into any of these things, you will have to be comfortable with the rest of the ecosystem in Cursor IDE. So I'm just giving you the breakup details. You can do a lot of configuration like editor setting, keyboard shortcuts, etc., like any other IDE. Next is the models. So if you click on the models, you can see that we have we have different models that you can enable, and by default the Sonnet model is enabled. Cursor small is disabled here. If you want, you can enable it. That's why it was not showing here. GPT-4o mini, O1, etc. is also enabled by default. You can give your own OpenAI API key, Anthropic API key, and Google API key. But beware that when you're using these models and when you're going to import it into Cursor, the cost that you're going to incur on these API keys will be higher than the cost that you're going to incur when you're directly using it inside Cursor. So it's going to be a little different. Beware of that and then accordingly use it. Next to the features. So there are different kinds of features that you can enable and disable. At this moment, you don't need to be really concerned about it. There are varieties of features that is available, but as of now, go with the basics, get comfortable with it, and then you can come here and you can start updating these things. By default, a couple of features are already enabled, so let it be there. These are the main things that you have to keep in mind when it comes to the Cursor internals. So as you can see, that Cursor is a front end and there is a model backend that is actually filling up the chat for you. Okay. Now, next thing that I primarily want to introduce is if I go back, we have to start learning with Cursor, and we have to somehow improve how we learn. So these two things we have to do. For that, we have to first of all learn this part where we are going to create a Git repository and push our code. Why this is important? Whenever you are writing anything, it is always better to keep a save of that whatever document you are writing, correct? Because you can refer it later, you can use it and share it with others, and you can use that to ask questions. There are a lot of benefits of keeping the copy of whatever you are learning, right? Git provides you a very stable and ubiquitous, meaning it is available everywhere in the internet. So you can easily access whatever you have learned. So pushing the code, pushing the documents onto the GitHub can be very, very useful. So what we're going to do is, before we actually dive into 1 and 2, I want to work on part number 3. If you have been looking at my other videos, I have spoken about the supporting applications that you will be needing when you start working with Agentic IDEs. One was Python that I introduced in the earlier video, and now we are discussing about GitHub application and its usage. Next, also we will discuss on shell if in the future if it is required. Now let us go to Git back. If you go to GitHub, if you get an account, so you need to open a free account and you will have a page like this. It is a page where you can create new repositories. You don't need to worry about the rest of the things. There are lots of features that all these applications have. Let us keep ourselves focused. This is very, very important. When you are diving into the software development, when you are diving into this Agentic IDE, there is going to be overwhelming amount of information that is going to be shown. I am trying to guide you in the direction which will get you to complete a task. Okay, getting small wins is very, very important. If you don't win, so if you spend some 30 minutes on the video and another one 30 minutes on trying it out, you need to have something that is that you can show to someone, right? Or you can show to yourself. I mean, you should, after 1 hour of spending time, you should either feel good, right? That okay, you have learned something, you have got something to further continue. So that kind of feeling is very, very important. And GitHub repo can provide you that feeling. So I will be showing you how. So let's first of all create a repository. So once you click on the new repository, we are going to name it as simple. One of the main challenges that you will face is naming conventions. Most of the time we want to think of a name which is useful, which is descriptive and small and all those stuff. Okay, one thing you need to always remember is that your names, file names, folder names need not be small. It can be as long as possible. So go ahead and give a very descriptive folder names and file names. Simple HTMX cursor site. So this is the name I'm going to give for the repository. And here in the description, I can say this is a simple website created with Cursor IDE. Then I'm going to leave it as public. I'm going to add README, and this part is a little bit important. So it is a file that helps you to avoid unwanted files getting uploaded to GitHub repo. As of now, just select Python. That's it. You don't need to worry about anything else. I'll be discussing about this later in this series of videos. And then you have to just click on create repository. So the repository name, description, public, add the README, and then Python gitignore, and you don't need to worry about the license, and then create repository. So this will create the repository for you and show it to you in a moment. What we are going to do right now is we are going to click on this code, okay, and we are going to select HTTPS. This is very important. By default, it might actually show HTTPS for you. Then it is well and good. So click on this. You need to clone this website. You can use GitHub. You can use Cursor IDE to understand all these things also. There is nothing wrong about it. But the point is you need to know, right? Someone has to tell you that you can actually do these things to make your experience with Cursor IDE better. After you do this, you need to go to the your terminal. So in the terminal, you need to go to the directory where you want to clone the repository. So before even thinking about cloning, what does cloning mean? So the process of cloning is started by using the command called git clone. And your terminal may not have the Git application installed. So do try to install this application by looking up the documentation or looking up the other videos that is available. And after that, once you are comfortable that the Git version is available, then you will have a Git version like this. Then you can use the Git clone and paste the link that you got from here. Right? We got this link, right? You have to use that and we have to enter. So once you do this, it will pull all the data from the GitHub, from this GitHub website, all this data, gitignore, readme, etc., and it will place it on your local system. So how will I know that? So if I do a CD right now, and if I do a CD into simple HTMX cursor site, this is the same name that I gave here, right? So if I do that right now, you will actually go into that. So if I do an ls, so you can see the readme file, right? If I do a cat on the readme file, you can see that this is a simple website created with Cursor IDE, which is same as what you see here. Now, this is a very basic stuff that you can do with GitHub repo. But the main thing is, in the last video, we had created a simple HTMX Flask site, okay? And we had these files already created, correct? We are going to right now move this, copy all these things and we are going to go into Git folders. We are going to go into a simple HTMX cursor site, and we are going to paste it. Pasted it, right? After you do this pasting, if you come back to your terminal, if you do a git status right now, so these are the commands that you need to be aware of, so don't worry about it. You will see that it is saying about these folder files have been added and it is untracked. In order to add these files, you have to say git add dot. You don't need to put this dot also, but it's fine. If you do this git add, then it will add all these files and stage it. After this, do a git status again. You will see now it is all in green, meaning it is being staged. After you stage it, you need to commit it. So you need to say git commit and -m first commit. So this is the first commit that I am doing to the repository. So I am going to name it as first commit. This is the commit message, and -m is the message flag. I'm going to press enter, and it has been committed. You can see this kind of an output. After that, I need to use git push origin main. So this is the command that is going to upload all the data that you are creating to the GitHub repo. At some time, what will happen is you will actually get this kind of a error. It might say that I don't have the permission to push the repository. This happens because you don't have the necessary settings enabled. So for this, you have to go and get the 1 minute. So if you go into the settings of your repo, if you go into the settings here, so you need to go into the settings on your profile. It will open your public profile, and you have to scroll down. You have to go to the, just a minute, you have to go to the developer settings, and you have to enable the personal tokens, access tokens. So only once you enable this personal access tokens, then you will be able to push it to the GitHub repo. Okay, this is one way, right? Let me complete this process. I have completed my fine-grained tokens setting, and now I'm going to go back, and again I'm going to push it to the origin main, and now it will complete the push process. Even after you do this fine-grained PAT token update, if it doesn't work, then take a look at the documentation. You will be able to solve it, or ping me out. I will help you out on that. So once you have done the push, if you go back to the repository, so you can click here, you can go to your repositories, and it will list all the repositories that you have got. And this is the repository that we were working. And initially you would have seen that it had only got this readme file, and now it has got all these additional files. So what is the benefit of this? The point I want to make here is that the these push and updating all these files to the repository will actually give you something to keep track. Okay, after half an hour or 1 hour of working on Cursor, if you push the files to the repository in the internet, you can actually begin in any of the other missions, or you can actually share this repository with others for reviewing, and you can actually discuss if you have any doubts with anybody. So there are countless benefits of working with GitHub repository. I'm just giving you one small example, right? So this is one of the main things. Next, we will go back. So we saw that how Git and how we can push the code to the GitHub repository. In the same way, how we cloned the GitHub repository, you can actually do a Git pull also. So I will discuss this Git pull in some time later, but as of now, in this particular discussion, you will primarily work on only Git push and updating the repositories. Well, so we have understood the two things. So we have understood the Cursor internals, we have understood how the GitHub and GitHub is going to help you, and how you can push the code to the GitHub repository. Next, we have to discuss how to learn with Cursor. Okay, for that, we have to go back to Cursor, and we are going to do a modification here. So we are going to close this entire open session by clicking on File, and close folder. So once you close folder, it will erase all the session data that you are having, and it will give you the open folder option. So click on open folder option, and you can go to the location where you have the simple HTMX cursor site and then open it again. Once you do that, it will bring you back all the files that you have, the readme file, the requirements, the gitignore, and the static and the templates. So all of these things will open up. Now let us look at gitignore first. Gitignore file will contain varieties of extensions. These extensions tell that do not push any of the files with these extensions or the files in these folders to the repository. So meaning, if you create any file with the extension .so, or if you create any file with the extension .exe, then it will not get pushed to the repository. Here you can also add one important, let us actually scroll down. You can actually see that the venv is also not pushed. So if you scroll down further, you can see the venv and .venv is not pushed. Also the .env file is not also pushed. So meaning, if I open a terminal right now, so it will open a terminal, and in the last video I had been discussing about Python virtual environment creation. So I am creating a virtual environment, and the virtual environment name is .venv. Okay, that is the name. So once I create this, you can see that it is creating a folder here. However, this folder file is not highlighted. It is actually dulled down. Right now, let the creation process complete. And if I remove this, and save it, what will happen is now this will actually get updated. So meaning now this .venv file will get pushed to the repository. So also you can actually click on this source control, and you can see that .venv files are getting updated here. Now if you go back here and if you use this .venv and save it, so autosave is enabled, so by default it will start saving. Now once I include .venv, then all these .venv files will get removed. So if you give it a moment, you can see that all this .venv file got removed. There is nothing else to commit. So this is the benefit of having the gitignore. Now let us go back. So these icons that you are looking at the top, this will help to navigate the varieties of frames or parts of the IDE. So this is the Explorer IDE where we can see the files. Fine. So I'm gonna close this terminal. I need the virtual environment. I'll be using it in a couple of minutes. But we are going to learn, right? So how are we going to learn? The main thing is we want to first of all learn about the HTMX. In order to get the chat window back, you have to use Control L shortcut key. Control and L or Command and L. So you can see that Control and L will open this. In this context, you can click on this icon, the show chat history, click that, and it will actually show you the new chat and new composer chat. Any of these things it will show. And if you want, you can actually get the older chat also. But in case of this particular repository, this is a completely new chat. So none of the older chat from the earlier discussion or the earlier video will come here. So you have to create everything new. So now I'm going to ask for a new requirement. So I'm going to say, I want to learn about HTMX. Provide me the material to understand the concepts and provide example code to execute. So this is what I am asking. And what will happen is this entire the material that it is going to give will be in text format. Okay, so I'm going to press enter and it will start generating. This is very similar to what you actually get it in any of the other interfaces that you have come across, whether it is ChatGPT, web interface, or whether you are working with Claude. So there also the same thing will happen. Even now, all the code also gets updated in the interface, right? The difference here is that after you get all this information, you can actually do one thing that is very interesting. So that I will be showing next. So you can see that it is giving a lot of information. This is one thing that I really like, because I know most of these stuff I have already dealt with it a lot of times. So I can just scroll through this and I can try to understand it. However, if you are new, this becomes extremely overwhelming. So just think about it. And moreover, look at the entire data. It actually gives a very detailed discussion. It starts discussing about the attributes, the various attributes like get, post, put, delete, target, swap, and trigger. These are the important attributes, in fact, for HTMX. And what HTMX does is very simple. So I will show you some examples in a couple of minutes. But before that, I just want to show you how the output comes. And you can see the basic examples. So the basic example has come up, and here a very basic example is getting posted here. You can actually use this and you can see how is the output coming. Okay, and here is a simple Python Flask backend to handle. Here we can see that it is creating a very simple application directly. So if you want, you can actually start making this basic example into a Flask server. So let us do that. Let us go ahead. But important point is create a new folder, because you don't want to change anything in this root folder, because this root folder is going to be our main server of our website, right? So here you can say example server. Okay, so this is what I have created, and inside the example server, I am creating a new file. You can actually, specifically tell to Cursor that I want to, have an example server, and then you can ask to give all the examples. But believe me, before you even start asking Cursor, you will not know anything, right? You are at a very basic level, so you will not be knowing these things. I am going in that same track. Index.html is the file that you are right now working here. So you see this index.html. I'm going to apply it, and I'm going to apply it on example server index.html. Keep this in mind. I am not applying it in any other location. Okay, so there is another one, index.html here, and inside the template there you should not apply. Keep that in mind. You have to apply it inside the index.html in example server. So click that. It will apply it on this file. This is one of the major challenges you will face. So if you don't know this, if you apply it in the wrong location, then it will go into the wrong file. The data will go into the wrong file and you will get confused. Okay. One of the main reasons that I see many people getting confused. So I am going to accept this index.html and it will get automatically saved. Next, what I'm doing is scroll down. You see, I'm not even reviewing what the code is. I know it is going to work, but I'm not reviewing anything. So next I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new file. It is called app.py. Do not confuse this app.py with this app.py. This is the main app.py, which is under the simple HTMX cursor folder. Okay, this app.py is inside example server. I am again and again repeating so that you guys can be very clear what is going on. Okay, and right now you see that I made a mistake. Okay, so what had happened was I had clicked on this external app.py, and now it is trying to replace everything inside the app.py. It's deleting a lot of things. You see that red one, it is actually deleting, and green one is what's updating. So I want to reject this update. So click on rejecting this update. Okay, this will leave the app.py alone, the original app.py. Now come to example server app.py and then again apply. So this time it will apply on the example server app.py. Right, it's applying and it will take a moment to update. And if it doesn't update, so here what is happening is it's not updating, then what you can do is you can just copy it and you can paste it. So it's a very simple way. Always keep in mind, if you select the wrong file, you can always reject the update that is going. So you need to be careful on which file is selected. You can actually look at the top also. it will show you where the file is located. So this file is located in example server. Okay. Next, what you're going to do is, there is an additional example that they have provided. It is called search.html, which we will look at it later. Okay. So now, as of now, this folder has been created, and if you scroll down, I am not going to update these two things, and it is explaining all this stuff. Okay, and it is explaining the variety of patterns that is there. Okay, and it is talking about installation process. So it is saying pip install Flask. Okay, and none of the other things it is explaining to me. Okay, that's what it is doing. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to open it, and I'm going to, I have already created the virtual environment. So I'm going to go into the virtual environment by using the source command. And after I do that, I'm going to do pip install Flask. That is going to install Flask. Excuse me. So once the installation process completes, then I need to execute this command. Excuse me. So I need to run the Python server. So to run the Python server, you have to be in the location where this app.py is. So to do that, you need to go into example server. Okay, I'm going to do a CLS, and I'm going to close this a bit. So I am in the example server right now, and I'm going to say Python app.py. And I do that, and you see that my server is up and running, and I can click on this, and it will open the server. You can see it is saying HTMX demo, and if I click on the current time, it is showing the current time. After doing this, that's where the important point comes. The idea of using Git repo. First thing is, you need to click on this source icon, and you can see all these things have changed. Okay, so I don't want to change this app.py. The HTMX, you can see the path below the cursor. You have to just say discard changes. So this will discard the changes in the main app.py, but rest of the app.py, it will work. So under the example.server, so you can say HTMX demo updated. I commit this, and I say always, and it will commit and push. So it will do both. So now I say sync changes, it will say okay. So now it will sync the changes to the GitHub repo. So if I go back, and if I go into the simple HTMX cursor site, if I do a refresh, you can see I have an example server here. So whatever you learned is updated here. Okay, that is the part where the code is working, but you have not learned anything as of now, correct? So we have only updated the code, but how are we going to learn? How are we going to understand all these concepts? Okay, that's where your time comes in, and also understanding of the Markdown language comes in. So there is a file called as .md file or Markdown file, which you can use to store all this information, including the code, and you can refer to it later. So I'm going to ask update the above material and examples of HTMX into a Markdown file called HTMX basics.md. What this will do is, it will collect all the above information, right? And it will create a simple Markdown format update. So you can see it is actually creating a simple Markdown format update, and all of these things you can copy it and you can paste it into the HTMX basics Markdown. So you have to create that Markdown file manually. Okay, as I told you, I am actually showing you the manual process. After going through this manual process, then it will be easy for you to go through the automated process with Composer. Okay, so inside the example server, I am going to create a new file. I am going to say HTMX basics.md. Okay, and here I'm going to copy this message. I'm going to copy the entire message and I'm going to paste it. Just a minute. This has actually copied everything from the code, from the details, all the examples, everything it has copied. Okay, from if you scroll up here, you can see it will start with I will help you. I will help you to create Markdown. So the same thing is copied here. Right now it is saved, and the benefit of having a GitHub repo will come clear right now. So updating Markdown, updating HTMX basics. You see, every time I'm updating a new data or a new file, new information, I am committing it to the repo. Okay, so this way what will happen is none of the data that you are creating with the help of Cursor will be lost. It will be there in your GitHub repo forever right now. So if you do a refresh right now, I have committed it, and you will see the HTMX basics.md updated here. Okay, and the fun starts now. If you click this HTMX basics, you will see all the basics updated here. So you can read through this in your leisure time. You can understand what and all is there one by one, and then once you are having some level of understanding, then you can again approach Cursor and you can start questioning it in a more detailed fashion. So this is how you actually learn. Let us now go back to our discussion. So we have seen how to use Cursor to learn, to help ourselves to learn. Okay, and we introduced Markdown format, this format that you saw here, which has all the necessary formatting done, and this is a very simple format. It has a good deal of syntax details available. You can take a look at that. And now we also saw that how to update the code base and push it to the GitHub repo. So we saw all these things. The most important point I wanted to highlight right now is that we created a simple web page, correct? So if you remember, we created this web page. We can actually tell to modify. We can ask Cursor to modify this web page and make this little better. So let us try this. Let us go back to Cursor, and assuming that you have completed the basic review of your the HTMX basics, I'm going to tell in the chat window, I'm going to add the context. So in the context, I'm going to say example server /app.py. So this will, like this, you can actually select this app.py and it will get updated here. And you can also select the index.html and it will get updated here. You see this update, and you can tell that update the app.py and the index.html to show a search box and make the fonts and layout more pleasing. So here, this is right now updating that entire app.py, and also it is updating the index.html. So let us open both app.py and index.html. And once this generation completes, you see it's really fast, right? This is actually using the fast generation from the Claude model. That's why it's working. And each of these generation is going to take one of the one count from my account. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep track of all this generation. That's why whatever generation it is happening, I'm saving it to GitHub repo. So you are looking at this app.py. click on this app.py, which is inside the example server, and then apply. So you see it is getting updated here. The red will get removed, the green will get updated. So all these things are going to be updated here. The extra data is going to be updated, and I'm going to accept it and scroll down. In case of index.html, click again on index.html and then apply. Okay, so this is much more easier, right? So you select the file that you're going to apply and then click on it and then accept it here. Once you have done this, all the stuff has been updated. Okay, so if you scroll down, you can see that no other change has been requested. It is explaining what has happened. Okay, and now you can tell that I want to update the new information on the search endpoint onto the HTMX basics .md. I can mention this way. Okay, what this will do is this will write all the information that it created right now into a Markdown file. So you see that it's creating a Markdown file, and then you can update this back into the Markdown file also. So let it complete and I will show you what happens. So this cycle of building something, documenting it then and there. So it has completed. So I'm going to go to the HTMX basics. I'm going to copy this message, scroll to the bottom, and then just update it. So in this way, what will happen is you will be able to keep track of what's going on. Right, so everything that it did, so whatever the CSS file updated, the app, you see the endpoint here, the app file that got updated, the list that got updated, everything is shown to you here. So it is also saved. Now let us now check it. So now we are going to run the app.py again. So this is a new app.py. You are opening it and you can see that it is completely different. So the earlier one was like this and the new one is like this. So when you click on the current time, it is coming in this format. And when you search for items, you can search for something like Python. You can say Flask. So you can see that it is showing below. So front end and back end, you can say Python. You can see all these things coming up. So this is how you have to learn and update with the help of Cursor IDE. So I believe that in this video, you learned quite a lot of things. Okay, keep one thing in mind. After you do all these updates, you have to go back to source control. The source control will show all these changes happening. So you have to say the front end, the basics HTML basic server is updated, and you have to commit it and sync it. This process you have to complete. So in this way, what will happen is everything, even though at the end of the day, the file is still there in your local machine, so it's not going to go anywhere. But when you commit it to the GitHub repo, you can share it with others. You can use it for discussing and also getting more information from others. So if you scroll down here, you can see the updates that I have done right now. So if you scroll down, yeah, these are the new updates that came in. Yeah, from here, this is all new updates that came in, the search box, the backend implementation, etc. Now, I hope that you are able to understand the power of working with Cursor, and when you pull in all the other supporting tools like the shell, the GitHub repo, the Python framework, Python and the ecosystem of Python frameworks, etc. This makes a huge difference. And why I'm actually going this way is that you need to be very comfortable with using Cursor, because it's going to become much more complex, right? You have to be very comfortable with using Cursor, using GitHub repo, using your entire file system, and then you can really start automating. You can understand how to work with creating a website, not just the website. This website is going to be just one part of it. We are going to build a lot of tools that is going to sit inside the website. Okay, so I'll be walking you through all of these things one by one. So this is one of the important videos that I'm making right now. So I believe that you have understood a lot of details in this discussion. I know it was a little longer. There were kind of disturbances in the middle. Sorry about that. And with this said, I believe that you have got some good details on how to learn with Cursor, how to work with Git repo, how to store your information back in the Git repo and retrieve it for learning later. And with that outro, I would like to leave with 4 words, that is practice, 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 practice. See you guys. Have a great time.